Once again, it's time for our 5-minute Bible study, or 5-minute-ish Bible study. Glad that you're here. Let's get into it. So, the next question that we want to ask, after having kind of wrestled with this question of who, is where. So we've said that this was written to a first century Christian community. But the question then is, where were these Christians living? Where was their community located? Again, not entirely certain, but more solid in the belief than we are in the author's identity, that this community resided in the city of Rome, again in that first century. The recipients, the book of Hebrews tells us in chapter 5, had believed for some time. So that means that their faith was more mature, it was a more established community. The Roman Christian community would fit that bill. So it was an older, established community. And then if you think about what I talked about earlier, the circumstances of the community. So thinking about what we just shared in a previous study, exposed to fierce persecution, physically assaulted, homes and goods plundered and stolen, thrown in prison, ridiculed in public, possible leaders of this Christian movement, this Christian community killed. All of those identifying realities can be said to have occurred to the Christian community in Rome. So when was Hebrews written? Again, two strong possibilities. The first possibility, the early dating possibility, is that it was written in early 60 CE under the emperor of Rome of Claudius and Claudius's rule, because that was during a time in which Claudius expelled the Christian Jews from Rome. The other possibility is that it was written in the year 64, when Nero was the emperor of Rome. And it was a reference to that infamous persecution of the Roman Christians by the emperor Nero. So why was it written? Why would the author of Hebrews bother to write this letter, this pastoral letter? Because he's essentially serving as a pastor, an encourager of and to a Christian community. And specifically, again, in the book of Hebrews, it says that it was written to serve as a means to strengthen the Christian community. It was intended to build up a Christian community who wanted to give up, who was weakened by the suffering and by the circumstances that they found themselves in. And in order to do that, the author does two things. To strengthen the Christian community to endure in the midst of their persecution and struggles, first, the author wants to establish within this Christian community a strong confidence in the saving significance of Christ's life, death, and resurrection. And then it is based on that, the reality of Jesus and Jesus' intercession and Jesus' work for us, for that Christian community in great peril and suffering. Having confidence in that they would then see that as a foundation for them to then secondly be moved to endure their faithfulness, endure faithfully, to live out their faith faithfully in the midst of their suffering so that they wouldn't give up. Because there's evidence in the book of Hebrews that as this first century Christian community is experiencing all these struggles, that they are starting to feel the pressure of them. And these social pressures are piling up and weighing them down. And some in this Christian community are choosing to give up their faith and to walk away from their faith in Jesus as a result of this. And so the book of Hebrews seeks to encourage the Christians in the midst of their struggle to turn to Christ for their strength. It acknowledges that they can't stand and withstand this pressure on their own, but that in Christ and through Christ and with Christ, they can endure it. And so the New Testament scholar Raymond Brown says this. It says that no believer can cope with adversity unless Christ fills his horizons, sharpens his priorities or her priorities, and dominates their experiences. Turn to Christ, the writer of Hebrews says. Be transformed, be strengthened, be reminded of God's love. I told you it would be 5 minutes-ish, so hope you didn't have your stopwatches running on that one. But we'll pick it back up next time. Look forward to seeing you then.